The reality of generational curses in the bloodline is a powerful and often overlooked spiritual force that, if left unchecked, can continue to affect families, communities, and nations for generations. This is not a matter of mere coincidence or bad luck. It is a deeply spiritual matter that speaks to the very foundation of our existence. Generational curses are not just inherited traits or tendencies. They are the result of spiritual decisions made by our ancestors, decisions that have consequences far beyond their immediate impact. These curses operate as an unseen force that affects every area of life: relationships, health, finances, and even our spiritual walk. What may seem like isolated incidents in a family's history could very well be the manifestation of deeper, more powerful spiritual forces at work. The truth of the matter is that these curses can be passed down from generation to generation, ensnaring each new life born into that bloodline. The Bible makes this clear in Exodus 20:05, when God speaks of visiting the iniquities of the fathers upon the children to the third and fourth generations. This is a warning that the decisions we make today, whether good or bad, will affect not only our lives, but the lives of those who come after us. It is a sobering thought, but one we must grapple with if we are to fully understand the depths of God's justice and mercy. One of the most painful aspects of generational curses is that they often manifest as cyclical patterns in our lives. People born into a family plagued by addiction may find themselves caught in the same destructive patterns, even if they vow never to repeat the mistakes of their parents. Families marked by poverty or financial struggles may find themselves struggling to break free no matter how hard they work. Others may battle physical or mental health issues that seem to have no clear cause. These are the kinds of spiritual chains that generational curses create, and they can only be broken through the power of Jesus Christ. In the Bible, we see examples of how generational curses affect entire families. The story of Adam and Eve is the starting point for the curse of sin that entered the world and has affected every human being since. The fall in the Garden of Eden was not just a personal sin, but a decision that brought death into the world for all of humanity. This single act of disobedience set the stage for generations of suffering and separation from God. Adam and Eve's descendants were born into a world tainted by sin, and each generation had to grapple with the consequences of their forebears' actions. Cain's story is another powerful example of how the consequences of sin ripple through generations. When Cain killed Abel, his bloodline was marked by a curse that would follow them for generations. His descendants were doomed to wander and live under the shadow of his crime. The consequences of Cain's sin didn't just affect him. They affected his children, grandchildren, and all those who came after him. This illustrates how the sins of one generation can leave a lasting mark on the next. David's sin with Bathsheba is yet another vivid example of how sin affects not only the individual, but the entire family. After his sin of adultery and murder, David's household was plagued by violence, rebellion, and tragedy. His own sons turned against him, and his family line suffered for generations. This serves as a stark reminder that the choices we make today can have far-reaching consequences that impact our children, our gendered children, and even those yet unborn. Even in the New Testament, we see the idea of generational consequences at play. When Jesus' disciples asked about the man born blind, they inquired whether it was his sin or the sin of his parents that caused his condition, John 9:02. This question reflects an understanding that certain physical or spiritual afflictions can be linked to the sins of previous generations. The disciples did not just believe that the man's blindness was the result of his own personal sin. They understood that sometimes ancestral sins can be the root cause of affliction. Max Jukes and Jonathan Edwards. Max Jukes, an atheist and criminal, left behind a legacy of brokenness. His descendants were marked by addiction, poverty, criminality, and even murder. On the other hand, Jonathan Edwards, a godly preacher, raised his children in the ways of the Lord, and his descendants went on to become leaders, pastors, and influential figures in society. This stark contrast is not just a matter of personal choices. It is a clear demonstration of how generational blessings and curses operate. One bloodline was cursed and the other was blessed because of the spiritual decisions made by their forebears. The truth is that if you recognize similar patterns of destruction in your own family, whether it is addiction, poverty, sickness, divorce, or spiritual blindness, there is a good chance that you are dealing with the effects of a generational curse. These patterns may seem random, but they are not. They are the evidence of a spiritual force at work, and they are not impossible to overcome. Through the power of Jesus Christ, you can break free from the chains that bind your bloodline.